Today I want to talk about a conference in 1944 that still resonates to this day.
UNFTR.
We've done some work already on economic systems and the nature of capitalism. We spoke about how economic theories are just conversations through time, reactions and responses to prior periods in thinking. How John Maynard Keynes developed practical theories in response to the two world wars and the Great Depression. How Milton Friedman developed theories in response to what he viewed as tremendous government overreach that came about as a result. In 1944, at the height of Keynes's power and reputation, much of his vision came to life in a little New Hampshire town called Bretton Woods. The war wasn't over yet, but the Allied powers were confident enough in the outcome that they began turning their attention to the New World Order. I recognize that New World Order are trigger words for conspiracy theorists, but in this case, it really was true. The old order of the world had collapsed, not once, but twice. By the close of World War II, it was clear that a new path forward was needed, one that would lay the groundwork for recovery, growth, and, as all of the attendees hoped, peace. Most of what was ultimately adopted at Bretton Woods had Keynes's fingerprints all over it, though he didn't get everything that he wanted. His original plan would have put more power in the hands of central monetary authorities, and it would have established a central global currency. A currency he liked to call Bitcoin. Just kidding. Seriously though, he believed that in order to prevent countries from falling too far into recessions or depressions, we needed to break from the gold standard while somehow leveling the playing field between currency valuations. This is key, and it will factor into many of our discussions going forward. The gold standard had outlived its usefulness by this time because it meant that money was finite, though the world and the needs of nations through industrialization and militarization was growing way beyond it. One of the things that troubled the Brit was the newfound financial prowess of the United States. He feared that without a balance of currency, this new alpha economy would infect the rest of the world if it ever went into another depression. And he knew, as most economists did, that a necessary byproduct of capitalism was indeed depressions or at a minimum, recessions. Building on this, Keynes's idea was to maintain stability by having one central clearinghouse for international funds. Everyone would pay into it. Deficit nations would have the ability to borrow, and surplus nations would remit a portion of their surplus to maintain balance through the insurance of a new global currency designed to settle imbalances. This wasn't about trade, it was about money, and making sure that no one ran too low, ran too hot, or just ran out. Ultimately, Keynes's grand vision fell short. But even though a global currency wasn't adopted, the leaders compromised with a reserve fund that could be used as a lifeline for struggling economies in the form of a credit line. Now, what did come to pass out of Bretton was the formation of two organizations that endure to this day, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The former was established to monitor currency exchanges and lend money to deficit nations. The latter was established to help countries recover from the war and to seed developing nations with desperately needed capital so they could enter the world economy. Now, many dispute the effectiveness of these bodies, and in fact, some argue that they're responsible for keeping poorer countries in poverty. It's something that we'll tackle another time. He also argued successfully that participating nations make their currencies convertible into dollars at a fixed exchange rate. In turn, the dollar could be converted to gold. Now, it took a few years to work this out, but it enabled the world to finally be free of the physical gold standard without throwing the balance of financial power into complete disarray. And it made the US the world's reserve currency. The point is to demonstrate how groundbreaking the thinking was and just how quickly it transformed the global economy. Even though the conference only lasted 22 days, it created a blueprint for how the whole world would operate for the next few decades. 22 days. 3 weeks to architect a new global order of money. It just took the Republicans 3 weeks to elect a speaker. Elsewhere, lurking around the corner, those who came to define the next half-century, determined to rip apart what Keynes had built, were planting seeds. In 1944, the same year as Bretton Woods, an economist named Friedrich Hayek from Austria published a book titled The Road to Serfdom, dedicated to the socialists of all parties. In it, he claimed that the rise of fascism and Nazism was not a reaction against the socialist trends of the preceding period, but a necessary outcome of these tendencies. Hayek would rise to prominence in later years partly for his canon of work, but more so for introducing the world to yet another young economist, an economist named Milton Friedman. Don't forget to hit subscribe and head over to UNFTR.com to learn how you can support the show and to find our podcast where we go into much more detail about this and many other scintillating socioeconomic topics that explain how the heck we arrived at this point in history. Here endeth the video.